Warning. Spoilers for all of these pieces of media right here. Recently, I've been getting a lot more into manga. I read Berserk all the way to the end of the Eclipse arc. I read a big chunk of 20th Century Boys. I dabbled in some Tokyo Ghoul, some Spy Family. But one that I decided to pick up enthralled me more than all of those probably combined. And that book was Vinland Saga. I'd heard of the show from some friends who've seen it, but I kind of put it in the back of my brain because it just didn't really interest me. Until I saw the first book at Entertain Mart. I don't know if y'all know about Entertain Mart. I love that place. I love Entertain Mart. So my older brother graciously bought the first deluxe book for me. And if you don't know about like deluxe manga volumes, they usually put like 3 of the normal volumes of the manga into like this fat book. And to be perfectly transparent here, I do not love Vikings. If I had to like make a list of coolness for like historical warriors, it would go probably samurais, ninjas, knights, and then like Vikings somewhere down here. But reading this, I was immediately hooked. This series is action-packed, dramatic, funny, serious, sad. It just packs up so many things and like flawlessly balances them. And that made it really hard to put down. But if you're watching this, I assume you've read and or watched this series, but I'm going to give you a little refresher anyway. Vinland Saga follows the story of Thorfinn Karlsefni, who is hell-bent on getting revenge on the man who killed his father. This leads him to following that man, whose name is Askeladd, over years and years, training to defeat him in like a proper duel. Of course, there's a lot more to the story than this, but this is kind of how it starts and what's the leading plot device in the beginning. But what I love about this dynamic between these two characters is they have like a weird, fucked up father-son situation going on. Like, of course, Thorfinn wants to murder this dude with every fiber of his being. But every time Thorfinn attempts to duel him, Askeladd is always sparing him. One, because he's a child, but he's always giving him advice in strange ways, and it's just a really cool, fun dynamic between the two characters. Now, you all know this if you've seen it, but I just wanted to start with this to provide some context to talk about most definitely my favorite chapter in the book. And that chapter is End of Prologue. End of Prologue is a pretty self-explanatory chapter name, but it is kind of strange when you're reading it and you go, this is the end of the like I'm 3 books in. And this is the end of the prologue. But after getting so much farther into the manga, it makes that kind of contextually makes so much more sense, and I think is kind of genius. Most stories have an inciting incident that drives the character forward, or defines them, or in some way moves the plot. And for Vinland Saga, that's of course the death of Thorfinn's father. But I think there's a second, even better inciting incident that happens here in the chapter End of Prologue. For even a little more context of this chapter, Askeladd's crew of Vikings is helping defend the Prince of Denmark, Prince Canute. Askeladd thinks that if Canute takes the throne, then he can defend his home country of Wales. When the king threatens to attack Wales, Askeladd then decides his only option is to kill the king, so Canute can take the throne and protect Wales. And in that situation, Askeladd is killed by Canute. There's a lot more to the scene, of course. I'm just trying to give a little short explanation. But Thorfinn, in this situation, freaks out when he finds out Askeladd is dying. He grabs him by his shirt and screams. Once Askeladd takes his last breath, Thorfinn lunges for Canute in a kind of a blind rage, attempting to take revenge on him for stealing that moment from him. My explanation doesn't really do justice for how hard this hits after reading 54 chapters before this, just expecting that Thorfinn will be the one to kill Askeladd in the end. And it works so well thanks to some great writing and great panels. You follow Thorfinn through essentially all of his formative years, and his only goal is to kill this man, and it is taken from him like that. It seemed like such a clear direction that Thorfinn was going to kill Askeladd, and made me realize that, like, hey, this didn't get rid of, you know, this painful loss of my father. But not even giving him that, and like, I don't know, is just such a devastating, almost more devastating than him just killing Askeladd and having to deal with that. Inciting incidents are necessary for great stories. Attack on Titan has the death of Aaron's mother, shaping his motivation to want to get rid of all of the Titans. The Last of Us 2 kicks off with Joel's death, sending Ellie on a suicidal revenge mission for the rest of the story. Spider-Man's origin starts with the death of Uncle. Maybe I'm saying someone needs to die for a great story. Is that what I'm saying? I don't think all inciting incidents need to have someone dying. I mean, the first Last of Us, Joel doesn't die in that one. I mean, the inciting incident... Oh. So yeah, a lot of times these incidents do involve death, and I think that it can be a great driver. It's also always great when the person that our main character loses embodies some sort of central theme to the plot. That our main character can use that to better themselves in a way to sort of keeping the memory alive of this person who passed away. Of course, there's exceptions to this rule, and one of my favorites is a more recent example that you might know. It's Invincible's sort of inciting incident for me personally, and one that I think is similar to Askeladd's death, is that it gives you so much time with these characters to build up this moment that will affect every single action of our main character later in the future. Mark Grayson looks up to his father, wanting to be just like him, developing an extremely unique relationship with superheroes, but inevitably being betrayed by someone who raised you is just such a devastating betrayal. Even though we as the audience know Omni-Man is evil, it's done in such a way that where enough is left in the air that when the characters find out, it hits incredibly hard, especially thanks to some great voice acting. Mark's whole goal up until this point is to be a great superhero, and to save lives and live up to his father. But that is stripped from him in an instant when he discovers his father's true intentions. And Thorfinn, who after his father's death dedicated every waking moment training to best Askeladd in an honorable duel. Someone he spent so much time around and wanted more than anything to kill him, just for it all to be taken. Now, of course, these two stories have a bunch of differences, but I think structurally, the way that they build up these moments to define a story that goes on for far long after this is just so good. And I think that build-up is what makes these plot devices just so effective. Another great but devastating example is Berserk. They take you through 13 volumes of incredible character development to set up all these dominoes to fall over, and just a horrible, horrible end to this beginning of Berserk. The dominoes don't fall over, they kind of get sent to eternal damnation, but So you can point to the death of Thor as the inciting incident for Vinland Saga, but I think while it's great and while it absolutely moves Thorfinn forward as a character, we just don't spend as much time with Thor's as we do with Askeladd. And in terms of a character-defining moment, Thorfinn learns nothing from what his father told him to do. We see scenes from the beginning where his dad tells him he should have no enemies, where he then goes on to murder hundreds of people with the dagger that his father told him to only use for self-protection. Thorfinn, after lashing out at Canute for killing Askeladd, is essentially sold into slavery. He has constant nightmares about the violent acts he committed through all these years, and is essentially forced to sit with these actions and sort of marinate on the things his father told him in the past. This is where Thorfinn's real development starts, and he sort of begins to understand what his father said and develop guilt, which is why I think while Thor's death is a great inciting incident, Thorfinn's real development really starts after this moment with Askeladd. Once Thorfinn is freed from slavery, he goes on to renounce violence and start to try to absolve himself of these sins by going out to search for Vinland, which... Whoa, Vinland Saga, that's the name! Of course, there's trials and tribulations after this moment, and the story just continues to surprise me as I read. It's just so good. I would really recommend. If you've watched the show, you can wait for the next season. I don't even know if they're going to do one. But to continue on to reading the manga, because there's some great moments. I just really wanted to talk about this moment because it's just an incredible introduction to this character, and the way it affects the story going on for many, many volumes after is just so interesting and cool. And it's become one of my favorite series that I've ever read. So yeah, I think that's it. I really love Vinland Saga. If you haven't checked it out, what are you doing? Watch it or read it. Do anything, just experience this piece of fiction. Come on. Why are you still here?
Sometimes I just want to forget.